So there are a few things you need to know to become a cool guy that people look at when you drive. And in this video, I'm gonna try to make that transformation for you. It's so hot in here. I'm gonna try to make you go from a, just your average Joe who just drives around to that cool guy that knows how to do all the cool stuff. He drives smoothly, he gets all the ladies, you know what I mean? So yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into the cool guy starter guide, I guess. How to become a cool guy when you drive. Alright man, let's get straight into it. So I've made a fucking list to show you everything you need to know to be the cool guy when you drive, because I'm really passionate about this topic. It's something that I basically live and die by. Always drive smooth. I swear to God, even if you're not a cool guy in people's eyes, you still feel like you're one. So it's pretty sick. Feels good about yourself. But anyway, the first thing that you need to do to start becoming a cool guy is related to your brakes. You need to start limo stopping. Now, what is limo stopping? Limo stopping, or limousine stop, is when you brake so smooth that people don't even know you finished braking. You know how when you're in your mum's car or your grandma's car, or maybe even your dad, right? Your dad could be a shit driver who brake pretty harshly, or like they'll brake pretty harshly, and when they finish braking, the car fully comes to a stop. You feel that little hitch, right? That little jerk at the end when they finish braking. That's not good braking. And how you perform a limousine stop is basically, as the car comes to a stop, you let it unload. You basically unload the brakes. You release the brakes as your car comes to a stop. Here, let me show you real quick, right? Because this is a bus stop. So I'm gonna brake, and then when the car comes to a stop, I'm just gonna let off the brakes like that, right? And that just makes for such a smooth stop. If I were to just keep my foot constant on the brake, there would be a low jerk at the end, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've been in so many cars, especially buses. The jerk at the end is just unbelievable, right? So honestly, I don't care what kind of driver you are, what kind of car you drive a manual, you drive an automatic, I don't care. If you brake smoothly, you are a cool guy, yeah? And just make sure you limousine stop every single time. I don't care what situation it is, uphill, downhill, stopping at a stop sign. Just perform a smooth limousine stop. It'll feel so nice as the passenger and also as the driver, because it's pretty satisfying to stop smoothly, right? You just feel so badass. But anyway, that was the first thing. And just to also know, it's not just about coming to a full stop that you perform the limousine stop, right? Even if you're just slowing down and you're like, okay, I've slowed down enough, now I need to continue on with the gas, right? Just smoothly let off the brakes. Don't just brake and then when you're like, okay, I can go again, don't just suddenly release the brakes so fast. Your brakes are not an on-off switch. This is something that I've realized. Your brakes are not an on-off switch. You have to modulate it. You have to be smooth with it, right? When you press on it, you're smoothly increasing the pressure, and when you release your brakes, you're also smoothly releasing it. This will make it so that the weight transfer within the car is gradual, and you don't feel any weird jerk, throwing around in the car or anything. So that always feels really nice. Look at my fucking heel toes, bro. I'll get to that. I'll get to heel toe shifting in a sec. And that brings me to my second point of being a cool driver, which is the concept of being smooth with your pedals, smoothly getting onto it, smoothly releasing it, also applies to the gas pedal, right? And in case I haven't mentioned, this video is specifically for manual drivers, because the things I talk about in an automatic, it smooths things out a lot, right? So automatic cars are boring as fuck. But anyway, being smooth with your pedal is also very important when we're talking about the gas pedal here. Now, when you accelerate, just roll onto the gas gradually. Yeah, don't just stomp on it. I'm in a high enough of a gear. I'm in a higher gear, so nothing really happens. But if you're in a low gear, say first, second, or third, and you're just not rolling onto the pedal smoothly and increasing your acceleration that way, instead if you just stomp on it, that will be such a weird jerk in the car, and you would not want that. And you might not realize it right now. Maybe you are stomping on the gas pedal, but you don't really feel anything happen. I promise you, if you drive a manual, once you start gradually rolling onto the gas, it'll be night and day, and you will never be able to go back to your old ways of accelerating ever again. So just trust me when I say this, and just give it a shot. Realize how smooth your acceleration will be. Another thing is how you should accelerate before you change gears. I swear to God, this is one of the most important takeaways from this video. No one talks about this. I will, so you will become like the 1% of manual drivers that are actually smooth, right? Oh, yellow lights. So when you accelerate and you want to change gears, right? Before you change gears, do not ever, and I mean ever, right? Do not ever just let off the gas and push the clutch down like that. Let me try to talk again, because his exhaust was pretty loud. Before you change gears, do not release your gas suddenly and then press the clutch down. Even though it makes sense to do so, right? When we're accelerating, when we're changing gears, we're pushing the clutch down in neutral, so we just let off the gas. What ends up happening is, it does not matter how smooth your shifts are. If you push the clutch down and release the gas pedal suddenly, your car cuts off acceleration, and the weight inside the car will be transferred suddenly. Right? Suddenly you're being pushed back to your seat because you're accelerating, and then you push the clutch down and then you're not. So everyone else in the car, your passengers, won't expect that, and they'll have this weird jerk forward. And you definitely know this. You've noticed in the corner of your eye. It's like the biggest insecurity of mine. It's like, I shift gears so smoothly, I don't feel anything. Why are my passenger's head just bobbing forward every single time I upshift? Bro, that's because you need to gradually release the gas until your car is at a constant-ish speed before you push the clutch down. So basically, to make a long story short, what I'm saying is, as you're accelerating and you want to change gears, just release the gas until your car is not accelerating so much anymore, right? It's almost at a constant speed. And now when you push the clutch down to change gears, there is not a sudden change in acceleration, so your passengers won't suddenly jerk forward because of the weight transfer, right? Everything is smooth now. I hope that makes sense to you. I know I'm just talking so much, but I'm just spitting game here, right? So hopefully you find it helpful. So that was the first two things. How about the brakes and acceleration? Whew. Okay. The third thing you need to know to be the cool guy when you drive. Holy shit, petrol is so cheap, $1.89. Are you kidding me? Holy fuck, it's gotten so cheap now. The third thing you need to know to be the cool guy when you drive a manual is learn how to ref match. Oh, please, 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 please. I am sick of seeing the YouTubers online that say ref match isn't necessary and it's a relatively hard skill, you should learn it. I'm not hating, by the way. I understand that those videos are aimed at beginners. They think they're just teaching a beginner how to drive a manual and they want to simplify things, right? But I'm here to tell you that to be a cool guy, you should learn to ref match. It's not hard. Like, I swear to God, it's not that hard. Alright? Just learn to ref match properly. Your gear shifts are gonna be so much smoother. And very importantly, you sound cool as fuck. Right? How cool is it to hear the car just rev out every time you downshift and you accelerate? Right? How cool is that? And also, when you learn to ref match, you're just in more control of your car, right? You do whatever the fuck you want. I want to be in 4th gear right now. I'm just gonna rev the engine, chuck my car into 4th gear, and I can just release the clutch instantly. Instantly in gear, instantly in control, right? I don't want to put the car into 3rd gear, release the clutch slowly, having to wait for it to fully, you know, rev out the car and match the RPMs. Like, bro, that's just so awkward. And I read something pretty interesting the other day where a guy said, I actually rev match because I'm lazy. I don't want to wait for the car to you know, let the clutch slip out and match the RPM. So I'm just gonna do it myself. I'm just gonna rev the engine up, release the clutch, and then everything is already where it needs to be for the lower gear. Everything is just smooth. I'm telling you, rev matching is just so satisfying. And it's not hard. Okay, what's the next point on the list here? Just walk control. Okay, now we'll talk a little bit about how to rev match, right? Because I want you to walk away from this video learning something new and come out of this video being a better driver, right? That's what I'm here for. I'm giving you tips and advice because that shit is sick. Now, to rev match, you obviously need to learn the ratios between the gears, and you know, it takes some getting used to. And I think the best way to learn about the gear ratios, you know, the different RPMs between the gears, is to just glance at your tachometer when you accelerate. Just glance over it and see. It doesn't take that long to look at the tachometer and to see what RPMs you were at before you shifted gears. For example, clutch down, 3000 RPM, 28 k's an hour in 1st gear. 3000 at about 200 RPM at 52 k's an hour 2nd gear, right? You're just glancing over just a little bit at a time to see what the RPMs are for the gear you are at, right? Doesn't take that long. You actually learn pretty quick that way. You remember the RPMs, and you're better at gauging the RPMs between the gears than you think. So just keep that in mind. And another tip I have for you when it comes to rev matching is, when you rev match, you put your car in the low gear, flip the RPM, and you release the clutch. Keep the clutch at the bite point a little bit longer. When you're first starting out, obviously you're not going to be exceptional with the pedals. You're not going to match the RPMs properly. Just keep the clutch on the bite point for a little bit longer. It'll smooth out everything, and it'll also help you. It'll also help you realize where you went wrong with your shifts, whether you raise the RPM too low, you over blip the RPM where the RPMs are too high. The clutch will correct that. There won't be any jerkiness in the car if you keep it at the bite point, and you will learn next time how much RPM to give, because it's a feedback loop, right? You've learned that, okay, my RPM was too low this time, the clutch dragged it up a bit, and everything was still smooth. Everything's alright. You're still learning, right? You're going through the process. And another thing you should take into account is not every rev match, not every upshift is going to be smooth. Right, you have to realize this. Me, I've driven manual cars for like 3 years now. Some of my shifts still aren't smooth, right? You're just not going to be smooth every single time, and you have to realize that. So when you're learning and your shifts are jerky, you feel a little hitch here and there when you shift, don't get down by it, and don't over stress about that, because shit like that, you know, it happens. So don't worry about it too much. But anyway, the last thing you need to know to become a cool guy, well, in terms of the starter guide, is learning how to heel toe downshift. And one of the main reasons you should heel toe downshift, once again, is you sound cool as fuck. Yeah? It's just always so sick to sound cool when you're driving, isn't it? And once you learn the heel toe downshift, now you have even more control over your car. You can downshift when you brake, and you will finally feel like a racing driver. You know how in the golden days of Formula 1, motherfuckers will just brake and downshift, and you can hear the engine go like wow, wow, wow. It sounds so sick. And I promise you, once you learn to heel toe, once again, you won't go back. right? You'll feel like a racing driver. You're just rolling through the gears when you're slowing down, and you can just be so smooth and drive so spiritedly without having to break the law, without having to break the speed limit, right? That's what it's all about. That's what driving manual is all about, just having fun. And a big tip I have for you when it comes to heel toe downshifting, this is a very interesting tip. And please remember this once you start learning how to heel toe, because it's more useful than you think. The tip is, the faster you brake, the less RPM you should give when you heel toe, okay? This might sound counterintuitive. Let me stop here a little bit so I can explain to you. It might sound counterintuitive because when you brake hard, you naturally want to blip the RPM harder because you're braking fast, you know, the adrenaline's up, you're in the zone. You're naturally gonna brake harder when you're slowing down fast. But I'm telling you, when you slow down quick, you should give less RPM, because when you slow down quick, when you release the clutch in the lower gear, you're gonna be at a slower speed. That means the RPM for that lower gear will be less than you anticipated. So when you downshift, just blip the RPM less so that the RPMs will be lower when you engage the lower gear after you've raced it. Does that fucking make sense? What else do I have here? So yeah, the faster you brake, the less RPM you give. This will prevent you from overshooting the RPM and just making the car lurch forward. And the last thing I have for you is, oh yes, this relates to keeping constant pressure on the brakes. If you want to keep constant pressure on the brakes, for the love of God, this is what you have to do. Put the handbrake up. Keep the ball of your right foot on the brake. Basically, the ball of your right foot is like your big toe area. It's like somewhere here, right? Keep that bit on the brake. Keep your heel on the floor and pivot your foot with your heel being on the floor. So you have your big toe on the brake. You're gonna pivot with your heel so that you can raise the RPM with your heel being stable, right? A lot of people, they heel toe by braking as usual, right? You know how you brake, you put your whole foot on the brake and then you lift your heel up, and people like lift their heel up and pivot with their foot being on the brake as the pivot. And honestly, it's so hard to keep your brake pressure constant that way. I don't know how people do it. I've tried to learn how to heel toe and keep the brake pressure constant like that. It just doesn't fucking work. I don't know how people do it. Honestly, kudos to them, because I can't do it. And I can only do it if half my foot is on the brakes and I roll on the gas with my heel being planted on the floor. So anyways, I hope this video gave you some value. If you're a beginner and you're starting out and you don't know what to do with your time, this is the starter guide to become a cool guy when you drive a car, when you drive a manual. And I hope it gave you some value. I hope you enjoyed my shifting, because I like to shift a lot. But anyways, I'll see you in the next one, alright? Peace.